Hi, and welcome to Feature Fridays. My name is Guy Bartram. I'm Director of Product Marketing at VMware, and I'm delighted to be joined by Varghese and Brandon today. So let's start with you, Varghese. You want to just give yourself a brief introduction?
Hi, Guy. Thanks for inviting me here. Happy to be here, in fact. So, my name is Verghese Philippos. I'm a staff technical account manager based in Dubai, part of the TAM METNA team, which is Middle East, Turkey, and North Africa. I had been with VMware for close to 10 years now, had been part of the CTO Ambassador program, during which I'd been working with vRealize operation as well as sustainability all through the thing.
Thanks, Varghese. And Brandon, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Brandon Gordon. I work on technical marketing for vRealize operations.
Thanks, Brandon. And you touched on it just briefly there, Varghese. Today we're going to be talking about sustainability and a hot topic for lots of different regions around the world at the moment, with everyone trying to reduce their carbon footprint and also become much more sustainability in their business overall and supply chain. So let's just have a brief kind of overview then of vRealize operations and sustainability as a capability within vRealize operations. How does it all sort of hang together? How does it work, Varghese?
So I will go back to probably like 2014, 2015, when we as technical account managers in the Middle East region were trying to use vRealize operation as one of the tools to show value within our TAM customers, because we found that as a quick win tool, like with the capacity reclamation, all of those things, and there were quite a lot of success stories. And that's when one of my customers in Doha, Qatar, state of Qatar, was asking about, they had a not sustainability, I would say power savings project. Even at that time, it was really not sustainability as a power saving, right? So they moved to virtualization just to save on power, consolidate the data center and save on the power, because they were trying to align with their nation drive initiative of reducing the power usage by 2025. Okay. So that's where it all started. And of course, virtualization is the key driver for consolidation power saving. But then how do we show that, right? They were literally using Excel sheets on calculating the power consumption, showing it back. That's how they were doing. So they asked me like, okay, vRealize operation became a key tool in like 2015 for them. And then they asked like, since it's vSphere platform, can you try to show this as a dashboard or as a report or something like that, so that the executive management can take it to ministries, right? So that's where I was looking in that, and I was surprised to find that there was a metric within vRealize operation for power metrics. And by the way, that is disabled by default. It was disabled out of the box, right? So thanks to Ivan Rabuk, who's a guru or my mentor with vRealize operation, he told me that this is possible. And then I started enabling, and we started getting the metrics, power metrics coming in. Now, then it became the other story. Like, okay, I'm seeing the power consumption. Now, what actually the customer wanted to see was, how much did I save by virtualizing, right? So that's where a thinking started coming in, right? So I can see what is the power consumption now, but then how much I save by virtualizing. So we thought like, okay, if you have 1,000 servers in your data center, if you were not virtualized, there would have been like 1,000 physical servers in your data center. And if you assume that there is a average power consumption, taking it as a low-end server, and average power consumption, if you can assume, then we can definitely calculate on with pure mathematics on how much would that be the power consumption if not virtualized, right? Yeah. So if I have before virtualization and after virtualization, I can easily find how much you save, right? And then once you have the power consumption, that was the initial ask, and we were able to use the supermetrics, the very basic supermetrics of multiplication within vRealize operation to get the power consumption before virtualization, and then after virtualization I already have, and then again I could find the savings. Now this was presented, and then they've said like, can I find also the carbon emission saved? Because that's where at the next step, right? Power saving and carbon emission. It was pretty easy, because if you know the power consumption, you can easily convert that into carbon emission with industry standard rates. We were using greenhouse gas equivalencies, which was basically like 1 kilowatt hour of power is equivalent to 0.709. And we again used supermetrics, and we found that. And that became I would say, the version 1.0 of sustainability dashboard. And this was presented to the management, and it became a big hit because he used to put that in his cabin in a big screen, and he was presenting to ministers and all. So it became really glad. And that's where even we reached out to the product team as well. And then we published that as a blog. And I would say, like, in 3 years, we got like about 1,000 plus downloads of those dashboard custom that available. So that's where it started off with, right?
You decided then it wasn't necessary to be custom; it could be included in the product. So, what release of the product did it come in at?
So it became in the product in vRealize Operation 8.6, which was GA in October 2021.
Right. So, for our cloud providers watching this, then we have several kind of key points I think to look at. First of all, VMware has been running with a program called Zero Carbon Committed, or ZCC for short, which is a initiative where a service provider signs up to an agreement that they're going to be getting net zero carbon emissions by 2030. And a lot of service providers, particularly in places like the Nordics, where they're running on hydroelectric power and they've got easy data center cooling and things like that, are already on net zero carbon emissions. But other regions of the world really struggle with trying to find renewable energy sources and efficient cooling and supply chain as well. So ZCC is definitely something that if you're a cloud provider and you've got a plan to hit net zero, look at our Zero Carbon Committed webpage and go through the application process to get listed there, because we're seeing a lot of demand from customers now to look for cloud providers who are carbon efficient and are on the road to a net zero result. So that's one aspect of it. And then, of course, Varghese, you mentioned the technology, right? So vSphere is at a base, right? The virtualization capabilities, but also consider products like Cloud Director, where you can run multi-tenancy securely on single hosts. So you can run multiple customers and give them effectively virtualized private cloud services on a shared environment. That can help you gain even more consolidation. And when you start playing with the Cloud Director allocation models, you can start seeing much more efficiencies as well in terms of your CPU and RAM utilization and storage. So those are kind of two things that really jump to mind as low-hanging fruit, I think, for our cloud providers to certainly look at Cloud Director. All of them are already using vSphere, so that's great. But going forward, this sustainability dashboard then would be a great tool for a cloud provider to offer as an additional service to a customer, to say that, hey, look, we're giving you our best, most sustainable service, and you can see here the carbon footprint that you're currently generating with our service in our infrastructure. And does it go further than that, Varghese, to suggest improvements that the customer can make to optimize it some more?
Yeah, that's how we came out with I would say the version 1.0. That was what we had in vRops 8.6, right? Again, in that, the first thing what we are showing in there is what is your current carbon footprint, and then how much you have saved by virtualizing. That is that's dashboard number one. Mm-hmm. Second one is like, okay, you have virtualized now. How can you optimize it further, right? How much carbon footprint you can optimize or reduce? And in this current release, we are looking at specifically the idle VMs. So it looks at identify the idle VMs, and then it tells you how much carbon footprint you can reduce by shutting down those idle VMs. So that's a way of optimizing. So now in that dashboard, how we look at is it gives a heat map of the clusters and say that if it goes beyond a particular threshold, change the color, and then so that it comes in there. But again, it's a metric. You can always take that value and publish this as a custom dashboard and use it across with that, right? And now once you have those, once you see that, there are two actions possible from that. One is basically either you go in and shut down those VMs, idle VMs, so reduce the carbon footprint. The other way is if you cannot shut down those VMs because those are needed for the business, they are running it, they are either using it once in a week, once in a month or something, but those are inevitable to be running there. So then we can give like number of trees to be planted to offset the damage done by these idle VM. That's another value which we can, again, it's a theoretical calculation, but then this is how we look at the sustainability assets and how we can improve on that.
Okay, yeah, that's really good. I mean, so I think one of the views that previous to kind of everyone getting more focused on sustainability was pretty much workloads were up 24/7, especially if you're running them in a service provider's environment where you had a long-term contract and you weren't paying, per gigabyte hour that you were using it. And also shutting down VMs can have, an impact on an SLA, for example, like breaching an SLA potentially. So by providing this report to the customer, a cloud provider could say, well, listen, we've established this baseline. You're running your business. It's now up to you to do the bit that you need to do to improve your sustainability footprint. So I think this is a great additional service, perhaps a managed service that a service provider could provide, or a managed report they could provide. But then ultimately it's for the customer to then make those decisions around those VMs, and service provider can perhaps advise them on best practices there. So Brandon, we've been focusing a lot on vRealize Operations Cloud recently. Can you tell us these reports, are they available in on-prem, in clouds? How does that affect? Are there a different cost, for example, or are they all inclusive?
It's available out of the box in both, so on-prem and vRealize Operations Cloud. So whichever way you consume it, you can take advantage of these. So and there's nothing really special. I mean, like I said, it's out of the box, so you get it. So it's very simple.
Excellent. Sorry, go on.
I was just saying, hopefully we get Varghese to do a demo so we can see what this looks like here in a little bit. I think it'll be a big hit for partners to look at. So yeah.
Yeah, excellent. And we're going to dive into the demo in a minute, hopefully. Varghese, I mean, is there anything that service providers can do to extend the dashboard? Perhaps have you got any examples of where customers have taken it that bit further that service providers could think about?
Yeah, very much, in fact, because as of now, in the current release, we are giving the carbon footprint from the vSphere world level, which is the topmost level, right? It covers the entire environment and shows in there. But then you have 18 new metrics, sustainability metrics for host object, virtual machine object, cluster level, and vSphere world. So we can utilize these and then create the custom dashboard for specific tenant, specific application group, which can be utilized by the VCPP, right? Because that would be the key thing. That would be the key thing for the VCPP partners, because they want to show it for specific customers. So definitely, yes, those metrics are readily available. All the metrics like carbon emission, power consumption before virtualization, afterwards, all of those things are available at cluster level and host level. So we can take that up and then create custom dashboards on that.
Okay, and just thinking about service providers, most service providers have multiple data centers in different regions, perhaps in different countries. I'm assuming that these dashboards can be curated to use different cost metrics, different data center cost, power metrics, whatever it might be, and that's customizable at a data center level?
Yeah, there are 3 values which can be customized currently. One is the carbon intensity, or what is the carbon emission factor. So which changes by region, and also with the power source coming in from, because nuclear power source and then the electricity coming from the wind source will have a lower carbon intensity rate as compared to anything coming from the coal-based electricity produced, right? So we have an option to reduce, update it or customize it per cluster level assets. So if they have a cluster running in a data center or physical data center in a different region which has a different power, we can customize that. That's one of the values. The second value which can be customized is cost of electricity. Of electricity, that's again something which you can customize, again at the cluster level. From the cluster level and above you can do. And then the third one is the number of trees that can be to be planted to offset the damage. So again, we are using the greenhouse gas equivalencies calculator for all of those values as the standard values. But then, customers can customize these three values and then going forward that.
Okay, great. Well, Varghese, should we dive into a demo? It sounds like we've done the overview from, I can't think of anything else to ask. We're actually having a look at it now.
Okay, so let's dive into the demo. So as you can see here, right, the homepage itself, we have a direct link for sustainability, and from where we can go in directly into the feature. So once you select the sustainability, we have a dedicated homepage for sustainability now. This is why, because unlike the other metrics and features and all, sustainability needs a bit of like information to be provided to the customer so that they can read the dashboard in the way it should be, because there are quite a few assumptions we have done on this, right? So that's where these things comes into picture. So if you see here, we take within VROps, we found that like sustainability within a data center is achieved by mainly three dimensions. One is green supply, clean demand, and lean operation. So green supply is basically the most important thing. I would say the power source, cleaner power source coming, and also like making sure that you have the optimized hardware which consume lesser power, right? That's one thing. And then the clean demand is basically reducing the wastage in your environment and making sure that it runs at the top, the best efficiency. So we have quite a few dashboards around that. And then the third section is lean operation, making sure that we run with least amount of overheads and buffers, because this is ideally what most of the infra team and all keep the buffers higher so that they never get to a shortage of resources, right? So that's again a wastage. So that's where we look at lean operation by reducing the overheads or the buffers without impacting the SLA of operation. So if you see here, within these we have different dashboards, and 4 dashboards is what we will focus on, that because those are the new sustainability based dashboard. Okay. So the first one, carbon emission saving. So this is exactly what we started with, right? How much is your carbon footprint now, and how much you have saved by virtualizing? So if you see here, the section of environment, this is your current environment. So you have 727 powered off VM, ESXi hosts, and then running VMs and the data source. And what we are trying to do is like, you have these 1959 running VMs, and if you are not virtualized, you should have been having that many number of physical servers, not those big as ESXi hosts, but then low end servers. And we take an assumption that each of those physical servers, we have done the details here, each of those physical servers consume 100 watts or 0.1 kilowatts. This is an assumption we take, right? And based on that, the power consumption before virtualization would be 0.1 kilowatt into those number of physical servers comes into 196 kilowatt hour, right? And now after virtualization, so of course this is a lab environment, so you will see quite a very low number here, but then this is how it is, right? This is the actual power consumption coming in from the ESXi host in the. So this is what we call after virtualization, 1 kilowatt hour. So and when we have these difference, we can easily convert that into the actual savings, power savings. And again, once we have the power consumption, we can easily convert that into the carbon emission before virtualization and after virtualization. And here you will see the carbon emission saved in tons during last 24 hours. You can see here 39 tons was saved in last 24 hours. And that converts again into electricity savings as well, because we have a value we use all of those, right?
So Varghese, just a quick question about this. So if a service provider, for example, is moving a customer from an old hardware platform, old cluster to a new cluster, like many of our service providers are going through NSX migration now from V to T, and they've built out new infrastructures on T. They could use this as a call to action for customers to say, look, the new hardware is much more efficient, much more effective. Not only do you have to move because we've got to support you, but there's a sustainability benefit if you do move.
100%. So as I mentioned, this shows from the vSphere world, which is overall environment, but then with the metrics, you can definitely use this dashboard, customize this dashboard to show it for the specific data center or specific cluster where the new hardware is there, and then showcase it that way as well. So yep, it is 100% possible on that. And all the calculation assumptions are being given here. What are the values we take, and what are the global values, standard values, what we take it there.
And if the provider wanted to adjust those values, different power consumption units, different size servers, etc., where would they do that?
So that is currently in this version we are given the way of like you can create a custom property for each cluster and then put a value in there.
Okay.
Add the custom value in there, and that will automatically be taken up as the value to be calculated in these dashboards, in these calculations. If there are no custom property, it uses the built-in value. That's how it works.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so this was the first dashboard. We talked about the carbon footprint and then how much they have saved on, right? Now, the second one I would say is like how much you can further optimize. This was what we were talking about, the idle VMs. Identify the idle VMs and then see how much you can further optimize, right? So in this dashboard, you see here, this is the wasted power from the idle VM. So each of these boxes are clusters and it's a heat map, right? And we have set a threshold. You can see the threshold here. Once it goes beyond the threshold, it changes the color, and then you can see in here. So now, once we have this, it can be converted back into carbon emission as well. Now, once you have once you have these clusters wherein there is more power consumption from the idle VM, as I mentioned, there are two actions. Either you can go in and shut down those idle VM, or look at this, right? Look at this dashboard of number of trees needed to compensate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And parallelly, you will see here, you can select each of those. These are the clusters, and then which are the idle, the reclaimable wastage from the idle VMs. You can, once you select it, you will see the values here, how it has been doing. Is it really a momentary value, or has it been doing from quite a few last 24 hours or a week or a month, whatever values you can see in here.
So that red box in the top section.
Yep.
If you scroll up, yeah. So that is met a threshold which you can specify and turned it red. But this is looking at what the number of VMs within the cluster that are idle.
Yeah, it directly looks at the number of idle VMs. It identifies filters the cluster by idle VMs and then calculate the power used by those idle VMs. Sums up that, and then that is the value which comes in here.
Okay.
So that's a metric here. You can see here, right? With there is a specific metric, power wasted by idle VMs in kilowatt hour. So that's the value which looks at in each of these clusters.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, the values, how we have taken all those clarifications are done here so that customers can just go in and look at that and then clarify on that. Okay.
So can you automate some of the actions from here if you wanted to provide this to a customer?
So as of now, within the dashboard or within sustainability, we don't have automated action as of now, but then definitely, yes, okay, we can attach PRO or any other actions.
Well, vRealize Operations has the built-in automation central, so you can use that to schedule like powering off idle virtual machines, or you can even set up to, you can even like create alerts to send emails to the customers if you wanted to as well. It's like, we've detected this virtual machine is idle. We recommend you go, take this action in order to save, to improve your energy usage, or you can word it, from a sustainability perspective. So there are multiple options you would have as well from automation.
Yeah, it's a good call actually, because I think as a customer who may be very conscious about his sustainability footprint, being informed when there is a potential idle VM that can be shut down and consolidated, then that would be a great action to be informed on. Leave it up to the customer, obviously, because it's their service. It's it's your SLA, but their service. So you kind of want them to turn it off if that's what they want. And you could probably inspire some competitiveness here as well. I'm sure with maybe multiple customers or multiple regions internally. See who could be the most sustainable environment and running environment.
I like that idea.
Yeah, exactly. So we have quite a bit of enhancements coming in the upcoming releases, but again on the actionable recommendations, wherein customers can look at and see where I need to optimize to improve my green score, right? That's something which is coming up, but then still in discussions, and that's where we are going towards.
If I was a service provider with multiple customers running on the same cluster, Varghese, can I get a view on who is the kind of main culprit and leaving their stuff on all the time?
So as of now, these metrics are added up into the cluster level, right? So, but we have the power metrics for virtual machine now, VM metrics. Right. So we can probably group that as an application or a custom group, and then count the power on that, sum up the power.
Yeah, that's what I would actually create. You could create a heat map and group it by the org coming from Cloud Director. You can group it by org to kind of get the view broken up by org, or you can even create a similar dashboard to this that you select your org or your PVDC or whatever, and it would show all the virtual machines related to that object. So you could create a custom dashboard showing the VM level metrics based on Cloud Director objects. So that is possible to do. It's not out of the box, but it would be pretty easy to create a custom dashboard to show that. Yeah,
that'd be quite nice. That would save a lot of kind of drilling down into individual VMs and trying to understand who they belong to. You could, if you could get visibility and use that as a call to action to your sales team to go and have a conversation with the customer about improving their efficiency.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks. So that's with how you can optimize, the ways of optimizing, right? Now, the third dashboard was based on what we call carbon transparency. So now, earlier customers used to tell that when I want to provision a VM, mostly two things, right? One is I want to provision it to a cluster or a platform where the performance is tiered, like tier 1, tier 2, or tier 0, whatever it is, right? And the second option is I want to provision to a cluster based on the cost. I want to provision to a cheaper cluster, something like that. Now, recently, the other ask which is coming up is I want to provision VM to the most greenest cluster, which is the most green cluster, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where we came up with this dashboard for carbon transparency, wherein we were listing out the top 10 green clusters by power efficiency. So when we say power efficiency, we were looking at the power consumed per gigahertz of CPU usage. So that's where we were using to make it more simpler rather than utilizing the other metrics as well, other memory, network, or this, because anyway, any of those metrics are being powered on, utilized, it is going to impact the CPU metrics. So that's the same thing which we use for the identifying ideal VM. So that's where we have this top 10 green clusters by power efficiency. It will tell which is the least power which are having the most greenest, and against that you will see also the capacity remaining and time remaining, so that not just by knowing that it is the most greenest cluster, but then also it gives you capacity remaining and time remaining. So you decide really do I really need to provision to that, right? So if you select,
what is the metric for that capacity and time? Is that minutes, and capacity is 3 gigabyte?
These are the days. This is the built-in metrics.
I see.
Coming from the vRealize capacity check. Sorry.
Yeah, it's time remaining before you run out of capacity. That's in days, and capacity remaining is in percentage. So that's the projected capacity remaining.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
And further, once you select that, right, when you decide on one thing, you will also get to see the power consumption trend over a period of time, CPU usage, memory usage, all of those things, right? So you can literally decide on, should I need to go in just by saying that it is a green cluster, right? So you can get to decide that. So we also given the top 10 green clusters by total power consumption. So this may not be ideal because for some of the cases where if you have a larger cluster, big cluster with a lot of VMs, of course the power consumption would be more, right? More ESXi hosts, more cluster. But then still, some customers wanted to know about not about the power efficiency, but then the total power consumption. So that's where we have listed this as well, based on the total power consumption. And again, once you select, you will get to see the trend of usage onto that, right? Mm-hmm. And this is another heat map where the clusters are based on the power consumption itself, pure power consumption. And another interesting thing is, like, if a customer has a physical data centers located in different places, different countries, we can plot that into this map itself, geo widget itself, and then filter it, like give the color coding or threshold based on the values, so that you can get to see that in the map itself. Right. So this is how you can basically look at where do you want to provision a VM, guidance on where do you want to provision based on the greenest platform.
Very good. I can see service providers using this, at the top level to understand their cluster kind of usage, and maybe kind of balancing across customers around the power efficiency across different clusters, and balancing, making sure the resources are being optimally used, so they're not overstressing one and underutilizing others.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's the third dashboard, and then the fourth dashboard, that is basically looking at the lean operations, or the you can say we call that dashboard as green supply. Looking at depending on the generation of the hardware, how old it is, generation of the storage data stores, how it is, and also like looking at the overhead, or how much buffer or overhead is in here, right? Again, if you look at here, right, the small clusters tend to have a higher overhead. If you look at n+1, calculating at n+1, right? So if you have a smaller cluster, you will have more wastage in there, because that's where you see. If you have a larger cluster, you will have lesser overhead in that way, if you count into n+1. So this is a bit of like, you can easily customize this, because here what we are looking at is the clusters which has 4 or less nodes, and then 120 or less CPU and less than 1 terabyte memory. This is just a guidance on like how to identify the smaller cluster, but then this will vary within customers, environments, and all, right? So if you don't see any of these, any value in here, that means you are compliant. You have all your green goals met on this particular thing, on the overheads. So you can always edit this values from 4 or whatever values, and then based on that you will get to see here. And once you select each of those clusters, you will get to see the actual values. What are the values in there at all?
Okay. Yeah.
Same goes for the older versions of ESXi hosts. But again, here we don't have an option to look at. We were not looking at the model number or purchase date or something. We were looking at the software version. So ESXi 6 or older, we know definitely it's going to be running on an older hardware. That's the only thing which we are looking at in here. Again, we can customize this. If you don't see anything here, that means your green goals are met based on this. So this is something which we are trying to improve on in the next release as well, with looking at the purchase date, which we already have within vRealize, and also like the model number, right? And once you select the hardware, you get to see the details in here. Same goes for the storage as well. The storage data stores. Again, we are looking at the version now, EMS version now, and then filtering it out to see that these are the aging storage hardware, just like aging compute hardware. And you select the details, you get to see the details. So that's the four dashboards, four new sustainability dashboard which came in, and in this ties in with, or this adds on with the some other capacity reclamation dashboards at all, which is what is being seen in the homepage alone, which can be used as a driver to uh, optimize your carbon footprint, right? So you see here, right? So you have all these dashboards, small clusters, aging hardware, carbon transparency, and these two are from the sustainability, which I showed now, and then environment impact of ideal VM. Rest all are already being there, all the out of the box dashboard, which tells about like how can you improve the efficiency just by closing the wastage on that.
Yeah, I think this is, when I look at things like zero carbon committed, for example, overall the service provider is making a pathway to zero carbon committed or zero carbon output by 2030. And whilst they go through perhaps changes of data sources, power sources, and going for renewable energy tariffs and things like that, their costs will change. But ultimately, when you're within the operational environment, the data center, the piece that's in production, that's really down to the customer. If it's a self-service environment, and having this sort of information would really help the customer do their bit for sustainability. And obviously, the more they do, the more perhaps the service provider could, compensate them for being a bit cleaner and hitting their objectives. But also, it's gonna really help overall that whole data center become much more efficient. So, use it as a managed service, use it as a self-service. Like Brandon was saying, create some customized reports that you include other information in here, and perhaps some automated actions for customers who, want to quite happily turn off idle VMs and then consolidate the hosts. I think that's it's really interesting to see this play out. And Varghese, you mentioned a number of times there's going to be some updates coming. Are these delivered in next versions of vRealize? These delivered ad hoc, and what can we expect in the next release, if you can tell us?
Sustainability is definitely a priority for VMware as well as the product team itself. So I think it should be coming pretty soon. But then definitely I don't have the exact timelines as such, but then I can say it's a priority, and there are going to be a lot of enhancements coming in from this, because we are looking at a lot of new things, or as an enhancement. We got quite a lot of feedback from the field on whatever we have seen. So we take this as I mentioned, right, version 1.2. So 2.0 is going to be, I can tell you, it will be very exciting, because it gives you customers the capability to track their carbon footprint, and then also give the ability to show the actionable recommendation, I would say, straight away, and then how to get to that optimal green score.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a great overview. Thank you very much, Varghese, for walking us through that demo. I think it's been good to see the dashboards, even though it's 1.0 format. I think it could provide a lot of value. And our cloud providers are very able to create their own customized reports and put those into Cloud Director, for example, with URLs, as we've explained in other videos with Brandon and York. So there's plenty of opportunity here to expose the sustainability footprint of their customers, which I think is going to be a great thing. And I know many customers are asking for this of their providers. So this is a great addition to see in vRealize Operations. Any final thoughts, folks?
I definitely encourage you to check it out. If you're not using vRealize Operations, you try and do a trial, or if you have vRealize Operations, definitely check it out. There's a lot of really great stuff in there. I think you may learn some stuff you don't realize about your environment. So it's a different aspect than some customers are used to looking at. So I encourage you to look at it. It is really compelling. I think it's great.
Yeah, a good call out, actually, Brandon. The trial, which we've covered in another Feature Fridays, very simple to go through. Download the collector if you want to use vRealize Operations Cloud and don't want to manage it. and then get your instant dashboards up very quickly, and like you say, hopefully see some areas where you can improve straight away, and then consider building this in longer term to your service portfolio. Great. Well, Varghese, thank you very much for your time today. It's a pleasure to have you on. Really appreciate the demo and you walking through all of the capabilities there. And Brandon, thanks for your time again.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Guy.
Cheers.
Thank you, Guy. Bye.